The views or opinions expressed on Ann Arbor Inclusive do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the City of Ann Arbor and the Commission on Disability Issues. For more information about the Ann Arbor Commission on Disability Issues, please visit a2gov.org/disability resources.
Hello everyone and welcome to Ann Arbor Inclusive. I'm Zach Damon. We have a wonderful show for you today as Debbie Dayton and Jan Crawford from Leader Dogs for the Blind join us in studio. Now ladies, this feels a little bit like deja vu. I feel like you've been on this set before. Oh wait, you have. And so back in February you were on the show.
Correct.
And you guys were very, very wonderful. And so first of all, I just want to say that it's great to have you back. And Debbie, you know, you talked about Leader Dogs for the Blind in February in the last episode. But for those that weren't able to see that and be a part of that show, can you explain to us again, you know, what Leader Dogs is, what they do, and why it's important?
Yes, I can. And Leader Dogs was founded in 1939, so we're one of the oldest schools that has been in existence all those years.
Mm-hmm.
And then in addition to that, Leader Dog is a brand name. We're truly a guide dog school, but we have other programs too, which maybe we can talk about in a little while.
Sure.
And so you might say that this is a guide dog, but there's other schools that have maybe Seeing Eye and other brands like guide dogs.
Sure.
You know, but Patrick truly is a Leader Dogs for the Blind. It is on the corner of Rochester at Rochester Road in Avon.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only location for Leader Dogs for the Blind, and even though it's an international corporation.
Sure. Well, I mean, and first of all, I just want to reiterate, too, that, you know, I think everyone is grateful for what the organization does and the services that they provide because it's extremely important. And this second question is for you as well, Debbie. I mean, I'm curious to know, I mean, how long is the average career, you know, of a service dog, and when do they generally retire?
They usually retire somewhere between the ages of 8 and 10.
Okay.
But Patrick now will be 11 in January.
Oh, my goodness.
So he has no idea yet what that word retirement means.
Sure.
But they tend to slow down, and really it's the dog that makes the determination.
Okay.
They tell us when they're ready to do that by maybe letting us know they don't want to be responsible any longer for our safety. And it's a very emotional situation when you do have to retire your dog, because Patrick and I have been together for 8 years in November.
8 years in November, my goodness.
So we're very, very close.
Yeah.
So when he chooses to do that, that's going to be hard for me. I already have an application in because at any moment when he decides to do that, I know because of the independent, safe travel that I get from Patrick, I want to go back and get a third dog.
Wow, wonderful. I mean, and you talked about that the dog is the one that lets you know when they're ready. I mean, what kind of signs do dogs give someone when they say, you know what, I'm ready to hang it up. I'm ready to sort of, you know, eat my puppy chow and just kind of lay on the grass.
Right. And that could be something like as much as me getting ready to harness him and go out.
Okay.
And instead of putting his head through the harness all excited about doing his work, he might back away.
Okay.
And I have to chase him around.
Okay.
Or it could be us stepping off of a curb. Technically, the dog always has to take that first step.
Okay.
Once I realize the curb is there, he shows that to me.
Okay.
And if he won't take that first step off, that means he doesn't want to be responsible. He's letting me know I can't be responsible for your safety anymore.
Sure.
Or we could be walking down the street and he just sits down and refuses to move.
Right. Okay. Wow, those are very...
anything like that.
Well, right. I mean, those are very interesting signs. I feel like it's a very interesting dynamic between the dog and of course, you know, the one that the dog services.
Right.
And this third question is for both of you, so Jan and Debbie, and I'm curious because as an Ann Arborite, I really enjoy the city of Ann Arbor. I love the fact that it's a city that prides itself on constantly moving forward, constantly being on the cusp of innovation. Now, I'm curious as dog trainers and people that, you know, work with clients and people in Ann Arbor, but also all around the state of Michigan. Do you both, in your opinion, feel that Ann Arbor is sort of a leader dog, livable city? Do you feel it's a city that sort of helps with that?
Yeah, I think each of us should answer that. From my perspective as the client,
Sure.
our dogs are trained so well that they perform in any environment. However, we do have clients that come to Leader Dog and are looking for training with their dog in an environment similar to Ann Arbor, where you have the community and the campus kind of blended together. And Leader Dog will actually, on special circumstances like that, bring a class out here to train. So you may at some point see some instructors working with clients and their dogs in the area. It's usually around the downtown area.
Oh, wonderful. And the fact that, you know, it's able to be blended into the community so well it is amazing. I mean,
and it makes you unique.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Jan, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think that from a puppy raiser's perspective, we try to ask permission wherever we go, because the law doesn't provide that coverage for a puppy to go in anywhere in the state of Michigan like it does a fully trained service dog. So as a puppy raiser, we have to ask permission to go into some of these places. And Ann Arbor is open-armed. Come on in. A lot of places will even have little bowls of water outside. So we know we're welcome and we don't have to worry about it. Very, very few places that we go anyway give us any type of hassle. But yeah, Ann Arbor is just, like you say, they're forward-moving, warm-loving people, so we have no problem with going downtown Ann Arbor, and it's a great place to work the puppies.
Oh, wonderful. And I'm glad it's somewhere, you know, where the puppies feel safe, where they really feel that they can sort of, you know, really do their job well. And this question, too, is for both of you, because I'm curious, you know, both of you have worked with Leader Dogs for the Blind for quite some time. Jan, you've been a trainer for quite some time, too, in raising those dogs, making sure they have the adequate training. But do you feel that the social climate of people that use leader dogs and service dogs, I mean, that sort of industry as a whole, do you feel like that there's definitely progress being made in terms of the acceptance of those animals within urban areas and within cities, or being, you know, going to public places, going to restaurants? And you know, Debbie, I'm interested to hear your thoughts first, because you deal with that on a daily basis. You take Patrick with you wherever you go. So what are your thoughts on that?
Actually, I haven't had too many times where I've been denied access. The only thing that I'm noticing now is because of public awareness and new legislation, because they've actually tried to be more definitive as far as what is a service dog and what isn't. Because of that, now sometimes I might be questioned about him being a service dog, but it's because the business owner now is more aware that there is a difference, and so they might ask me a few more questions. But it's always, in my mind, I never get upset. It's always educational. And I think that the public awareness of the types of service dogs, especially with all of our veterans now who suffer from all kinds of traumatic symptoms from the wars and things like that, it's very important, and they're specifically mentioned in the law too, that they should have access. So there's always that little minority only that wants to say, hey, this is my pet, but I'm going to say this is my service dog, you know. And that's where the confusion now is coming in for the business owner, and that's why they actually improved the law to make the definitions more firm.
Wonderful. And I think the fact that they've taken the steps to improve the laws, to make things, you know, better for either party, I think is wonderful. Now, in your response, too, you talked about veterans and how there's a great service for them in terms of leader dogs and service dogs. So can both of you touch on that a little bit? I mean, what kind of services do you provide for veterans?
Okay, well, I'm going to actually defer that to Jan.
Okay, sure.
Because as a puppy raiser, if her puppy that she's raised doesn't make it and gets career changed, then there's a whole new way that puppy has abilities to be used in other areas that could provide a service to someone.
Right. So there's like 4 other entities out there that leader dog will take the puppy and say, okay, then we're going to move this puppy from the leader dog world to possibly the veterans world. And my experience, don't quote me on this, but my experience with the veterans is often it's just they need a buddy, they need a companion. It's more of a therapy type. So they don't, yes, there are the people in the wheelchairs or the inability to walk and so on and so forth, but that's not leader dogs. That doesn't, we don't use our dogs for that. You have to be mobile with a leader dog. Paws for a Cause and some of the other entities out there do work with those type of folks, but for a therapy dog, when these dogs don't qualify, they don't qualify for a million different reasons. And one of them could just be an allergy or something.
Okay.
So it can be, they're still great pets, and
Sure.
they're great, and a lot of us that do ask for the puppies back, we'll take them and they'll become certified in therapy.
Sure.
So we'll take them to the veterans organizations, and we'll take them to the hospitals and such. So
that's great.
it's just, yeah, it's a wonderful experience too for those folks. But what I did want to say was that we have a lot of issues with the internet, you know, people on the internet trying to buy the harnesses and the little jackets that all of these service organizations provide,
sure.
and try to get their pet in places. And those a lot of times are the times that their animal isn't trained at
right.
all,
okay.
and it kind of harms us in a you know, that.
Right, so that really has to put you in an awkward situation.
It does.
Just sort of bridge the gap. What you're saying is, again, for those watching, the service that you provide for the veterans is not, again, the primary goal for what your program is.
Correct.
But if a dog does not necessarily meet the requirements for the training that you provide,
right.
then those dogs are then, provided to the veterans to help as companion dogs and things
yes.
like that. But then you brought up an interesting point of people are buying harnesses now to put on those dogs that no longer use that training or have that training, to sort of pass them off
yes.
as dogs that are leader dogs, which
right.
I find is very interesting. Has there been an increase in that, or is that sort of leveled off?
There has been an increase, and unfortunately, as a puppy raiser for leader dog for the blind, we don't have, other than, I mean, I could bring out everything in my puppy raiser bag, and I do have a notebook to prove that I've got the contract on the dog, and it says leader dog and all those things. We don't have a really good method of pulling something out of my pocket saying this
right.
is a credential, this is a certification that I'm a puppy raiser, and this is a true puppy
right.
from leader dog. But we have them tagged as well. You know, they've got the leader dog leashes, and they've got a leader dog tag on them. So, but who's to say that that couldn't have been bought somewhere too? But so when we come across that, we just have to deal with it, like Deb said, in an educational fashion.
Right.
The last person that was in here with the dog, and you're telling me I can't come in with my puppy, it may not have truly been a service dog.
Sure.
Being a puppy being raised as a service dog, it may have been something else. And we're sorry about that. And if you still won't let me in and let me prove to you that this is what it's supposed to look like,
right.
then I'm sorry, and we walk away, you know. But now Deb, in Deb's case, she has a certificate in the harness of Patrick that she can definitely say this is a service dog, so on and so forth.
But I would like to clarify that by the American Disabilities Act, truly, there's only two questions I can be asked. Is that a service dog? So I'm going to say yes. What does that dog do? He guides me. Technically, that they can't ask me for any ID.
Oh, okay.
But again, I'm going to be very cooperative, because if it helps them determine maybe someone that's falsifying a dog and trying to take it in, then that makes it better for all of us. Right. Because I was in a restaurant one time, for instance, and somebody told me, "Oh, there's a service dog in here." Well, the dog was on top of the table.
Oh, geez.
And I said, "I don't think that's a service dog."
No, no.
But I also wanted to clarify too, Zach, that as veterans too, we have issued guide dogs to veterans who have lost their sight during the war or for other reasons.
Right.
Okay. So it's something, both of you, I guess, to sort of tie it all together, it's something that's definitely developing.
Yes.
And, for those, I guess, that have that issue of, okay, we're not sure if this is a service dog, and for those people that are using the harnesses to get their dogs in, I guess, try and see if they have a certificate or some kind of thing. Of course, again, you can't ask them.
Right.
But if they can view the certificate, or if it's visible, that's great. And of course, if they don't, more than likely than not, that is not a leader dog.
I think because I am a business owner, I think that I would ask if I had a disobedient dog in my establishment, I would go to the person and politely ask.
Okay.
And if they had any proof of that, and maybe their dog was just having an off day. We all have that too.
Sure.
But if that's the case, then we're trained to leave the area.
And Jan,
change the
being
scenery.
a business owner, she can ask if Patrick was misbehaving in any way, or if he was uncleanly. she would be within her grounds to say, I'm sorry, ma'am, you're going to have to leave with your dog.
Sure, okay.
It's not behaving appropriately, like the dog on the top of the table.
Right.
That would have been a good reason for that restaurant owner to say, I'm sorry, you know, you'll have to come back another time when your dog's more well-behaved.
Sure.
Or if the dog's really dirty and you can see fleas jumping off of it or something, you're totally within your rights as a business owner to ask them to leave.
Okay. Well, and on a positive note, I don't think any of us mean any malice. We're just trying to educate those of that situation and that's happening. But for those that I would say, you know, are guilty of that, please just be fair. You know, understand the laws, understand the guidelines, and hey, we want you to have your animal as well, but just be fair and be within the guidelines.
Right.
Yeah, and a good reason for that is because some pet owners don't necessarily have all their vaccinations on their dogs.
Oh, wow.
Patrick is almost a $40,000 dog. So for him to be hurt in any way or injured, that would be really very bad for myself, you know, and very difficult too.
Right. No, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, and ladies, moving to a bit of a more positive topic now, you know, it's really interesting because both of you sort of shared input last time on the puppy timeline, if you will. So for those that didn't have a chance again to watch the previous episode that you were on in February, can either of you just sort of give your input on the puppy timeline? And of course, Jan, we can start with you because you do train those dogs and you're very familiar with that.
Well, if anybody saw the last episode, they'll notice I don't have anything by my side right now. And he was hard to see, but I had a black lab. His name was Mason, and he has been turned back into we call Leader Dog University. So he's going to college. So yeah, the puppy timeline starts out with us filling out an application, and in about a month or two we get a new puppy. The puppy's 8 to 10 weeks old. On that application we can put specific needs if we want a male or a female. We use the 3 breeds: Goldens, Labs, and Shepherds.
Okay.
The reason we use those breeds is because they're generally a tried and true hardy dog.
Sure.
There's less Shepherds used today, but there's still clients that want to use the German Shepherds. So we have these Goldens that are very hardy, and you can see Patrick doesn't have hip dysplasia or anything else, and he's almost, you know, 11 years old.
Right.
So that is their disposition. You know, it's all great. So we go through and we go into training. We have a puppy counselor that we tap into. We have meetings every month. We try to get our puppy everywhere. Socialization and basic obedience training is what we need to do.
Okay.
At the end of the year, we turn the puppy back into Leader Dog University, and the puppy goes through another 4 to 6 months of training, of which we built the foundation for. And at that point, where we are with Mason today, Mason was actually issued to a client a couple days ago.
Oh, wow.
So Mason made it through the program.
Congratulations.
And I don't know who the client is yet, and so we will meet that client because they will allow us to see the puppy and the client.
Sure.
August 20th. So next week I go to see Mason for possibly the last time. Oh. But we do service a lot of Spanish-speaking countries.
Really?
So Mason could go to Spain, like one of my other puppies, and so they have to have translators for me and so on and so forth.
Okay.
But the feeling part of it too, I wanted to touch just a little bit on that because a lot of people say, "How can you turn that puppy in after you've had it for a year?"
Right.
Well, all of these things now. I'm not as emotional turning the puppy in as I am as meeting the puppy again down the line with the client.
Right.
Because I've been a part of that, and it really, really, really feels good.
Yeah.
Very, very good. And like Deb sitting here, you know, I mean, she started me on this path doing what I do with puppies, and so by turning Mason in, it's like, go Mason, I hope you graduate and I want to meet your new person. And there we go, you know. And so back here is Jason and Nico, and Jason and Nico are Nico is one of my puppies, and Jason works for the Department of Defense. He is blind and deaf, so Nico went through the blind deaf portion of the training when he went back to Leader Dog.
Sure. Well,
so that was something different too.
Well, no, wonderful, Janet. I mean, what a great lead-in, because I wanted to ask you about Nico and Jason and sort of the story behind that, because it's a wonderful story. So can you tell a little bit briefly about Nico and Jason and their relationship?
Yes, and when Nico went back to leader dog, I had no idea. I mean, he was an exceptional puppy, but could I say, oh, he could go into the blind deaf program and be worked with the deaf folks as well?
Sure.
I didn't know that. So I get this memo from Deb that he's in that program, and it's one of the first that Leader Dog was attempting to try.
Okay.
We've had the blind deaf program for many years, but they were doing new things with that. So that meant that I believe the dogs learned some sort of tactile signing.
Okay.
And that's what's always happened with the deaf program. But
Sure.
this time, when Jason, because he can't hear anything, when the doorbell rings, Nico walks up to him and he'll put one paw or his head on Jason's leg.
Okay.
And then if the fire alarm goes off,
Sure.
if the phone rings. So they are doing all of these type of trainings with the dog, which they'd never done before.
Wow.
So, yeah, and so it really, because if you're blind and deaf, you can't have a big strobe light when the phone's ringing because
Sure.
you can't see it.
Sure.
So they had to teach the dog to be able to, address those concerns. So Jason and Nico go to work in Washington, D.C. every day, 5 days a week, and he commutes there, public transportation.
Yeah.
He lives in the suburbs, and they are a great team. Who would have thought that my little puppy was, and then he becomes a poster child for Leader Dog.
Yeah, there we go.
And I get a banner to boot. So it was, and we go visit him all the time.
Oh, great.
And Jason has a device that he can text me on, and he texts me all the time about the puppy.
Oh, great.
He communicates more with me from a client perspective to a puppy raiser than anyone else. So it's wonderful.
That is so
wonderful.
Well, no, and I mean, it's amazing too, ladies, that these dogs, I mean, they go all around the world. So it's, I mean, would you say it's sort of again, a university for dogs in a way, because they, they go to school, they get trained,
They do.
and then they're shipped off all around the world to do, really, again, a great service. And Jan, when you talked about just the different types of training that is happening now to sort of bridge the gaps between dog and then, of course, the person that they're servicing, I mean, that is amazing. I mean, the fact that, a person can be deaf and blind, and yet a dog can still have great communication, with that owner and be able to help them in daily life, and that is just amazing.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yes. And Leader Dog is one of the very few schools that has a dedicated deaf-blind program with the ASL interpreters. So that kind of separates us from many of the other schools too.
No, sure, and I wanted to, bring up a great point, Deb, and I briefly wanted to touch on this.
Yes.
I mean, how does, Leader Dog get funding? Because again, you said that, it's really not an organization that, makes a profit or gets money.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, Leader Dog is a nonprofit organization, and if anyone wants to check it out at Charity Navigator, they can.
Sure.
They have a very high rating.
Okay.
And they get a bulk of their money, well, let's just say there's no money, we'll say where they don't get money from. It's easier.
Sure, sure.
Okay, we don't receive anything from United Way. We receive nothing from insurance companies, like as if it was medical or health insurance.
Wow, sure.
And we don't get anything from any government.
Okay.
So all of our funding is simply done through Lions organizations, who, since they founded Leader Dog back in 1939, they're one of our largest supporters still. We have corporate and business owners that donate to us, and then the general public. And I want to thank anyone, I'm going to take this opportunity, if you have contributed or supported Leader Dog, with my whole heart, I appreciate that.
Sure.
Because, look at the wonderful dog that I have here, and truly, if I didn't have Patrick, it would totally change my life back to what it was prior to Patrick, and that's no fun. I don't even want to go back that way.
No, let's not focus on that.
Yeah, so thank you very much for support. I appreciate that. And it is a wonderful entity, and it's a great service organization. And if you don't mind, I'll just touch on a few programs since we've already mentioned the hearing and deaf program.
Sure, yeah, I mean, briefly, please do.
Yeah, okay. We also have the orientation and mobility program, which means that you learn how to use a cane and your senses to be able to orientate yourself, to get around safely. Some people like to just stay with that cane, but many people actually, once graduating with the cane, will come back to Leader Dog and apply for a dog. But person has a total choice in doing that. And Leader Dog is at the leading edge of that orientation and mobility training. We have individuals come from all over to just be able to come there and study a little bit further, or to have that be part of their learning experience. And then in addition to that, we have for 16 and 17-year-old children, we have summer experience camp, where they come, and this may be the first time they've ever been away from home. And they've never been able to rock climb before, or go out in a kayak or a canoe, ride bicycles, tandem bicycles. So as Leader Dog's giving them all this experience, they're actually learning leadership skills and also group dynamics.
Wonderful.
So when they leave there, they're much more assertive usually and very independent.
That's great.
Yeah.
And well, and the fact that you're offering those services so early on to younger kids, I think is great. And for those, both of you, Jan and Debbie, that want to get involved or want to help out with Leader Dogs, how can they get in touch with you, and how can they become involved with the organization?
Okay, the easiest way would probably either to go to the internet, www.leaderdog, no plural, .org, or the phone number is 888-777-5332. And I would encourage anyone to go to that, just even if you're curious a little bit about the programs and actually what's going on there. And the fourth program I wanted to mention, which is, we've been talking about it all this time with Patrick, is the guide dog program. That's our biggest, but so it's those 4 programs. We also, those are for the clients. We also have 2 programs, breeding and the puppy raising. And with the breeding, we're always in need of people who would accept a female who will have puppies in their home, and they'll whelp the puppies themselves. And then eventually they work their way back to Leader Dog. We also need puppy raisers. So again, please go to that website, www.leaderdog.org, or 888-777-5332.
All right. Thank you so much, Debbie and Jan, for joining me, and I want to thank them again. Debbie Dayton and Jan Crawford for joining me on Ann Arbor Inclusive. And please be sure to tune into Ann Arbor Inclusive next month. We hope you enjoyed the show, and stay awesome, Ann Arbor.